All right. I got Denise Dorman in the house. What's going on?
In my house. Yeah. Not in your house, in my house. I'm in the house. I'm going on. What's going on with you?
I'm good, man. That color looks beautiful on you. That
Oh,
shirt,
thank you.
your
Thank you.
hair,
Thank you.
everything.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. So, we've known each other for like a long time
I
and
know.
we never talk.
I know. So
I've
here we
even
are.
talked, it's crazy. I've talked to your husband. I've even had him on my podcast,
Yeah.
Dave Dorman, who's honestly like a legendary, what would you say? He's a illustrator, Star Wars,
hmm
Marvel, DC.
Alien. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's like world famous for his artwork,
hmm
like no joke. But
Right.
I never get to talk to you, and I connected through you,
hmm
through my cousin, who was one of the top editors at one time in Chicago.
What's he doing now? I haven't talked to Charlie in forever.
Charlie, I don't, you know what? I think he's just kind of semi-retired at home, and he's helping with his local schooling and helping them there,
Oh,
like
good.
elementary school, working somewhere with
Oh,
that. He
okay.
just took a break from editing.
Oh, yeah. He
Yeah,
was
yeah,
amazing. He edited our TV show for years through Northwest and prior to that Polygon
yeah.
or Polycom, I think it was called.
He's been doing that since the 70s. I mean, he's an Emmy
hmm
winning. I mean, he's amazing.
Yeah,
He
he
edited
is.
my second feature film and he helped me on both of my films. And
hmm
then he worked with you because what did you
The
produce?
Superchargers. I was the writer producer on a nationally syndicated motorsports series called the Superchargers, which was Jan Gabriel. And since you grew up in Chicago, you know that Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. That was
Yeah.
Jan. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. He was my second dad. I call him my TV dad.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. And then, like, I haven't been making films lately. I don't know if you've been involved with film or TV, but it seems like both of us kind of did a
hmm
different type of transitional move as far as being more or less influencers, I guess.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of an overused word,
Overused, but yeah.
a little bit, but you like are really specific. I don't know how this happened. Though. I'll just
hmm
say this. My cousin was a very corporate orientated guy, like 13 years ago, said, Rich, jump on LinkedIn because I love MySpace. And then when that died, I was miserable. And everyone's like, no, do Facebook. And I'm like, this is going to die too. But my cousin
hmm
said, do LinkedIn. And I'm not a corporate guy, but for some reason I signed up with LinkedIn and it kind of exploded for me.
hmm
And that's where I met you. And it seemed like it kind of exploded for you as well, even though
Right.
you wouldn't think, in my opinion, like people that are in the arts, film, television, not saying
hmm
not great to connect, but like everybody now, I think, not everybody, but a lot of people will be like, no, you got to go Insta, do
hmm
Instagram. Only do you, well, YouTube wasn't even around, but it was all Instagram. And I'm kind of on LinkedIn. And that's kind of what
hmm
you did, right?
Right. Yeah. I chose LinkedIn as my primary social platform. Facebook has just got too political for me, and if I see political posts on LinkedIn, I just, I post. I'll click on there that I don't want to see political posts because I don't. I mean, it's the one I call it my safe space. It's the one place I can go on social media where I don't have to be bombarded by political opinions about things, which I like. And also, I like the fact that it started out with the right idea, which was very much, business to business, business networking.
Yes.
But what I really like is it has, in the same way that B2B marketing has transitioned into humanizing brands,
Mm,
um, I think that LinkedIn has also transitioned into humanizing the people on it. And so the studies have shown that when you share something personal, and I've tested this, and I test all the time. I've tested this, and it's true. When you share something personal, you get way more views and way more sharing.
yeah.
And so I think it's worthwhile to mix a little bit of the personal because we're not just 2D people that are
Yeah.
only in business. We have lives outside of work. And for example, my boss one day asked me if he could put a fundraiser on LinkedIn because his daughter had passed away and there was a marathon. And I recommended that he did it. He didn't end up doing it. He kind of shied away from it. But I thought, that is the place for it. People want to understand you as a person outside of just you as a business person, what you're dealing with, what influences you, what impacts you.
Yeah, there is that perfect line of being personal
Hmm.
and being,
Hmm.
well, I guess your brand, everything. There's got to be
Yeah.
authenticity.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
it.
it's about
Hmm.
being 100%, I believe, authentic on social media at this point in time. That's just
Right.
because if you come off too polished, and I've done that myself, where it's kind of over the top, where everything looks like it's just choreographed and everything is so well written, and it becomes, it's just not, it's a phony
Inorganic.
kind of,
Hmm.
yeah, it's not organic. And I'm going to be doing
Hmm.
another podcast with someone coming up. We're going to be teaming up, and
Oh,
I
I
think
think
I'm
I
going to be,
listened about that. Was it the initials CPQ?
yes, with the
Uh-huh.
queen pin.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I think we're going to call it 100% authentic.
Hmm.
I'm thinking, or some name attached to that, because she wants to
Hmm.
be as authentic as possible, and so do I. And
Hmm.
I thought that was kind of an interesting name. So
Yeah.
something
I
like
like it.
that.
I like it. Hmm.
Yeah, because she loves that, and I liked it too, and we're kind of opposites, but we have it's just we kind of hit it off, and it was kind of a fun thing to do.
Yeah, I heard a lot of chemistry there. I thought it was a really good mix. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Hmm.
interesting with her because she has her
Yeah.
own, and I have my own. But here's
Hmm.
the thing with you that a lot of people I don't think know
Oh.
is you're into so many different things
Hmm.
besides, like, besides just being LinkedIn. And I mean, you do copywriting, you're a
Hmm.
journalist, an author,
Hmm.
publicist. I mean, you're involved with,
Creative. Yeah.
yeah,
Creative
ghostwriting.
ideation,
I mean, you have
ghostwriting.
your own
Hmm.
podcast. I mean, you
Hmm.
have really taken on a lot lately, it seems like.
Yeah, I've kind of just stepped out. I didn't really put myself out there that much for a very long time. And I recently just thought, I'm not getting any younger. It's time to do it and just see how it goes. My podcast is very much a newbie podcast. I am filming. Listen to me. I'm talking like it's the 1990s. I'm digitally recording my second episode today with a very good friend of mine, Tony Swatton, a Hollywood blacksmith, and who owns Sword and Stone in Burbank, California. So I have a lot of fun with that. You know, the big joke with my friends growing up was they always said you should be you're the white Oprah. They always said you're the white Oprah, you're the white Oprah, because I am genuinely curious about people and
Yeah.
interested in people, and I ask kind of sometimes really left field random questions that they aren't typically asked because I'm genuinely curious, and so I don't think you can fake that. And so I think that's what comes through, that I'm genuinely interested in whomever I'm talking to.
Wow, that's interesting. The White Oprah.
Yeah,
I should title it.
the white
Denise
Oprah.
Dorman,
Yeah,
the White Oprah.
we'd probably get sued, but
Well,
but that
you weren't far from Oprah Studios. You know what I mean?
no, not far, about 45 minutes west. So yeah.
Did you grow up in Chicago like I did, or
No, where were you? What neighborhood were you in?
my family's from Chicago, right outside Cicero,
Okay.
and then I went to LaGrange for a little bit. But for the
Hmm.
most part, my family's from Cicero, and Melrose
Hmm.
Park is where I kind of grew up
Hmm.
as well. My mother and father are South Siders, Summit Argo
Mm.
area. I don't know if
Okay.
you know where that's at.
No,
That's
no.
Chicago. Summit
Is it by
Argo is right near
Midway?
Midway Airport,
Yep.
right behind it, right
Yeah.
behind it. Archer
Hmm.
Avenue, Harlem,
Hmm.
right there,
Okay.
55. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's where they're from. They're Southsiders. I'm
So
kind
you
of West.
probably know Freddy's Pizza and Rainbow Ice Cream.
Yeah, so I grew up going to Freddy's Pizza my entire life in Cicero with my
Yeah.
grandfather from when they first opened. And I used to post there all the time. That's my favorite restaurant basically in the country, or in North America, I should say.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I love Joe over there and his wife. And I think they have the best comfort food in Chicago, hands down. Pizza, gelato,
I've
obviously
only had
pasta, everything.
pizza. I've only had pizza from there. My ex-husband, his whole family, he was Lithuanian Bohemian, and so his whole family was from Cicero. His grandfather owned Cicero Coal and Oil back in the day, and so Al Capone was his client. And Al Capone used to buy coal for all of the little old ladies, all the little old Italian ladies in the
Yeah.
neighborhood. And so my ex-husband's grandfather had like receipts signed by Al Capone, and so he had a lot of wild stories. They were a fun family.
Yeah, my first film I did, called Sore Losers, was about the underground world of gambling in Chicago, kind of what I grew
Hmm.
up in and what I lived. It's
Mhm.
kind of just a documentary, but it's a film. It's a mockumentary, I guess you could say. And I
Mhm.
shot a tremendous amount of the scenes in Cicero, even
Mhm.
Berwyn, but Melrose, I did a lot
Mhm.
on Taylor Street, and we did them
Mhm.
all, a lot of exterior. And Charlie didn't edit that film; he did my trailer for it. But
Oh, cool.
we did it in the late 1999
Mhm.
time, and then we did early 2000s another
Mhm.
film that he edited. But I was always shooting in Chicago, even though for the most part I lived in Florida. But my daughter had health issues, so we go back and forth.
Mhm.
But I love Chicago. I just can't stand the weather, right? I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and it's gotten pretty draconian lately and unsafe lately. So I haven't been downtown. Well, I was downtown last March. That's the last
Mm.
time I've been downtown. I've been kind of avoiding it because I just don't feel as safe down there anymore, and that's very sad.
Yeah, my buddy owns one of the top boxing gyms in Chicago, Franklin Street.
Hmm.
That's what it's called, and he's, he even said it's a lot of his clients and a lot of people, and he's right next to actually Trump's.
Hmm.
Um,
Tower. Hmm.
yeah, right next to that, or right in that area, which is a really beautiful area.
Good
But
area.
it's been hard, I think, between
Hmm.
COVID and that going on with all the violence and things. So
Yeah. Hmm.
it's a crazy time. It
It
is
is.
definitely crazy.
I hope 2022 is so much better. I'm looking forward to 20. I'm intentionally saying it this way. I'm looking forward to 2022 being so much better.
You plan on staying in Chicago, or are you going to leave?
No, I plan to leave.
Oh, you
Yeah,
plan on leaving?
I plan. I either Texas or Florida. Those are the two I'm looking at. My sister-in-law and my brother, my biological brother, whom
Yep.
I've always wanted to live near and have never been lucky enough to live near him. They're talking about moving to Waco, so I'm looking at Waco, and then Pensacola areas where we used to live. We lived outside of Destin in a town called Shalimar, Florida.
I know. Well, yeah,
So
I know all those areas.
yeah, so I'm also kicking around. I like Pensacola. I mean, everything we did was there, and my good friends are
Really,
all there. Yeah.
the cost of
So
living there is incredible, affordable.
yeah,
You know what I mean? The
what
weather's
people
kind of
don't
nice there.
understand about Pensacola is it's Key West North.
Yeah,
It is so
yeah.
artsy and so cool and so beautiful, and they have a great mayor who has really completely cleaned up that city, and it's beautiful. It's in a great location. It's, let's see, 45 minutes from Mobile, 3 hours from Biloxi, 4 hours from New Orleans, about
Yes,
6 hours from Atlanta. I mean, it's a great location. You can get everywhere. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind going back there. I miss it.
I
I
tell a
didn't
lot of
like the hurricanes, but
I tell a lot of people that do want to move to Florida because they always think, they have to go high end, and I get it. They want Naples, Fort Lauderdale, Boca, South
yeah.
Beach, right? Even Orlando,
Hmm. Hmm.
Clearwater, all these places that are expensive. And I'm like, go up to the Panhandle area too, maybe, because a lot of people from Chicago, I'll just say, it's a closer ride. Plus, you have
Yeah.
access to a lot of other cities. And a lot of people
Hmm.
go too far south and they complain about the weather, where obviously, it's a little cooler in Pensacola.
Right,
The
right.
cost of living's cheaper. Or you
Yeah,
go to
but you have a little bit of a
Jacksonville.
change of seasons. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the Gulf Coast better. I'm more of a
Do you?
Gulf Coast
Mhm.
person versus the Atlantic side. I think it's just prettier. The water, when it's not a hurricane, the water is calmer and it's clearer and it's just more beautiful. But I don't know.
And
The
it's
only thing
whiter.
that, yeah, it just makes me nervous about the hurricanes. That's the only thing that kind of holds me back a little bit. But
Yeah, I
what
get it.
town are you in now, Rich?
I'm in Orlando.
Orlando. Okay. Do you like it?
I do. I've been here since I was basically 18, with the exception of when I moved to San Diego for like 6, 7 years. But I
Hmm.
traveled so much. I was out of California just as much as I was in it, which I love
Yeah.
San Diego.
I do
But
too.
I've traveled throughout the state of Florida. I mean, I can't explain how many times. And now my girlfriend, who used to be on the coast that you love, she
Hmm.
used to oversee a bunch of Sephora stores, like 25 on that
Oh.
coast.
Hmm.
Now she's working for Party City, so she's doing the other side. Now she's doing the
Hmm.
Atlantic side. But
Hmm.
I grew up coming here at 5 years old, spending a lot of time with my family members in
Hmm.
Fort Lauderdale, Boca, Pompano area. That's where
Hmm.
me and my father, we thought we were going to be going, but
Hmm.
my stepmother had a sister in Orlando that was running the SeaWorld ski team. So we
Hmm.
ended up staying here. And to make a long story short, I've been here for
Hmm.
a majority of my life, Orlando.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I kick around the idea of middle state just because I think you get less impact from the hurricanes.
Yeah.
And the older I get, the less I want to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
my house being disrupted. I was pregnant with my son when our house got hit by Hurricane Ivan,
Mm-hmm.
and we stayed for that hurricane. And I'll never forget, what was the guy's name? Not Bastardi, the other guy. I can't think of his name. It was on the Weather Channel, and he was literally 10 minutes from our house. And I thought, uh-oh,
Mm-hmm.
he's 10 minutes from our house. We're really in trouble. And then the power cut. And then a tornado hit our house, just like clipped the roof, not like, how you would imagine a tornado. Just clipped the roof. But
Yeah.
all of a sudden we were sitting in the living room. It was a 2-story house, and there was just a water hose, like a fire hose of water coming through the ceiling fan in my
Mm-hmm.
kitchen, in the little kitchenette, in the dinette area. And I just thought, oh God, so then we raced upstairs to see what had happened. And it basically clipped the shingles off of the roof above our bedroom.
Oh,
And I was, let's see, this was September 15th. So I was 2 months away from delivering our son. So I was pregnant.
wow.
And now we have no bed, no master bath, no master bedroom.
Yeah.
It was just a mess. So I don't really want to go through all that again, but we'll see.
Yeah, there's strengths and weaknesses to any place you kind of live in Florida, truthfully. Like if you're in the center, you don't have, but it's not that it's
Mm-hmm.
far, but you don't have the ocean, hypothetically,
Yeah,
right? But
right.
Orlando is kind of really unique where not only are we, so many people visit us no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
especially family members, friends, everybody ends up in Orlando. It's almost like Vegas, I said. And
Right.
also if they go to South Florida, it's a few hour drive. If you go to on the Cocoa side or you
Mm-hmm.
go on the east side, I should say it's only an hour drive. You go to the west, Tampa side,
Mm-hmm.
the Gulf side, it's an hour and a half. You go to Jacksonville, it's 2 hours. So you have all these things that are very accessible. Where if you live in
Mm-hmm.
just really far south, you don't come too much up north. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
too far up north, very seldom will you go down south a lot, unless it's for work. But
Right. I mean, nobody really understands that where we lived in Florida to drive to Key West, that's like driving from Illinois to Florida. I mean,
yeah,
it's the same distance.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. People underestimate how big Florida truly is when you get down,
Right.
starting from the top, obviously, all the way to the
Right.
Keys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Let's jump into this though. I want to ask you something because you're the
Sure.
marketer. You've I always get in, I don't want to say an issue with marketing people because a lot of people bullshit when it comes to marketing, as you know.
I know. I am all for the no bullshit marketing. I really I think one of my missions is that I try to post stuff on LinkedIn to help people and give them some tips and give them some ideas so
100%.
that, yeah, because
That's
I
your
want them
thing.
to be able to not be married to their marketing agency. I want them to be able to, some people just don't like to do it themselves,
Right.
and that's okay. I get it, but at least you have the option. Yeah.
I'm not
It's
just saying
not
it's,
rocket science,
oh no. Me and
Yeah,
you, a lot of times, I think we honestly genuinely want to help each other more
we
than
do.
like we kind of want to prove our value, even if it's helping each other market, if that makes sense.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think I just think a lot of marketing is scammy. And a
It
lot of
is.
people pitch what they say they're going to do. They can't do what they're
Mm-hmm.
claiming they can do. Then they kind
Mm-hmm.
of reverse it and say it could be your brand, which it could be your brand. I'm not saying.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to online marketing, and I talk about this a lot of them aren't willing to prove their value, their worth
Mm-hmm.
before they want to charge you a substantial amount of money, claim they're
Up
going to do a
front.
lot of things, you're going to get these
Right.
certain type of results, and very seldom have I ever seen it work out, starting with films, books, programs, even
Mm-hmm.
podcast, YouTube stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it amazes me though that how a lot of people pitch again marketing and they're not willing to even say, I'll give you 30 days or I'll show you if I do this, the type of results. Cause I always tell them, I'll give you a percentage off of whatever you do at the beginning, but you got to have some skin in the game. I got to see what you do, how you do it, especially if I don't
Mm-hmm.
know you. A lot of
Yeah.
people just hit you up and think that you're going to hire them and spend thousands of dollars with them. And usually if I back them into a corner like this, I said, who have you worked with like me? I'd like to talk to them. I'd love to see like how they've succeeded. So if you're marketing a book, I want to see the type of book you've marketed. Is it
Right.
similar to mine? How many book sales were there? What did they get out of it? I don't care that they
Mm-hmm.
went on a book tour that's kind of bullshitty. I don't care that they handed out their books to 200 celebrities and they're free and they got
Mm-hmm.
all these tweets and shit. It comes
Mm-hmm.
down to money. What
Mm-hmm.
did you actually what profited out of hiring you as a marketing company.
Right. Right.
So you're doing marketing. How do you kind of, work with clients when it comes to that? Or how do you
A
pitch
lot
to
of
them?
it is okay. So like a little bit of what you're talking about is PR, right? So book
Thank
marketing
you.
is really public relations. I'm working with somebody right now, a psychologist in Venice, Florida, and what I did was I committed to something called the National Publicity Summit, which is with Steve Harrison, and so I invested in that, and I pitched to 84. It was like a 6 episode pitch session of like 4 hours a piece. And so I pitched to 84 journalists, bookers, producers, um, radio hosts, podcast hosts, and I think I landed like 82 of the 84. Now, that being said, I'm still in follow up mode from last
Hmm.
fall where I'm still trying to follow up with these folks and get, solid dates. But
Right.
it was successful in that regard. But PR is so hard because the um, the way it's set up, you definitely start out with a retainer. So I get a retainer at the beginning of the month,
Hmm.
and that's what I'm paid, and then I work through the month based on, that retainer. And a lot of times with PR, it can take 6 months to get a major hit. Now, my guy, he's already been offered a regular radio show, which I'm really happy about because I pitched that and made that connection for him. But it doesn't always work out that way. A lot of times, magazines are they're planning,
Yeah.
a quarter at least ahead that you're pitching, and so you may not see results for 6 months, and so it is an investment.
Sure.
I did a podcast the other night with the South Jersey Writers Group with two other publicists, and it was very interesting because one of them used to work for a publishing company, and now he's in Israel. So God bless him, he got up in the middle of the night just to do this podcast with us. And the other one was a Hollywood publicist. He worked with celebrities, he worked with CEOs and sports personalities and stuff like that. And in back in the day, when I was doing power, maybe even 7 years ago, I would get 1 in 10. If I did 10 pitches, I would get one solid response usually. And this guy was saying, the Hollywood guy was saying 1 in 100.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's how competitive it's gotten. And
Yeah.
when I was talking to all of these different producers directly, they were saying, I literally get 1,000 emails a day. So I may not even see your email. So it's almost like a,
Yeah.
lottery as to whether or not they're even going to see your email.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work to make one deal happen.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, that's the film industry that's trying to get
Mm-hmm.
a publishing
Mm-hmm.
deal or whatever you're trying to do. It's so
Mm-hmm.
saturated, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
call it for what it is.
It
Um,
is.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
even if you connect on LinkedIn, let's face it, I think a lot of people think they're going to connect with somebody. And I've been there 2 years ago where I connected with
Mm-hmm.
somebody who was well known in the film or television industry. And I'm thinking, oh, now I'm building a friendship or relationship with this
Mm-hmm.
person. Maybe they'll help me. They're just
Mm-hmm.
too busy a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times, because I found
Right.
myself in that position then as time went on when you're making films and everything, that everybody wants something from you and you want to help others. You just
Mm-hmm.
don't have the time to do it anymore, right?
Right. That's why I'm trying to teach people because it's like I don't have time to take on all of your projects, so I've got to try to teach you to do it yourself. I really want to help small business owners. That's kind of my passion is helping startups and small business owners and showing them how to do what I do so they can just do it themselves.
Yeah, and I just recently saw your podcast on ghostwriting because I don't think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people really understand ghostwriting, even
Mm-hmm.
screenwriters
Mm-hmm.
or people within that. They have an idea of what it is, but not truly how much work it takes, or maybe it being a career opportunity
Mm-hmm.
as well. Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of writers, as you know, are broke. I don't care if they're screenwriters. I don't care if they're authors. Everybody thinks because you write books, you got money, or
Right.
but it's not like
Mm-hmm.
that. Let's call it for what it
Right.
is. But that was a really good interview you did. Who was that again?
Claudia Suzanne.
That's
Yeah,
right.
she is amazing. She's a great teacher. She knows everything about everything about publishing. She's just brilliant, really.
Yeah, yeah. When you listen to somebody or a podcast like that, and I listened to the whole thing, you
Mm-hmm.
also realize how much time and effort it's going to take to develop, which I loved her honest approach on that. I think a lot of people think they're going to learn something in a year and their
Hmm.
career is going to take off, or 2 years, like you're going to junior college, when the truth is this could be decades. Or,
Right,
you know what
right.
I mean? By the time you learn or master your craft to a certain degree, network, get in front of the right people, and things go your way. But there's so many
Hmm.
obstacles in between that.
Ghostwriting, I think, is probably, I mean, if you go through her course and you do it the way she does it, I think that ghostwriting is one of the easiest ways to get into publishing.
Right.
Um, I know someone who's a ghostwriter full time, and he would love to get into fiction writing, but he's had a hard time making that crossover. I hope he does eventually because I think he's brilliant. But you get so into your ghostwriting projects, you don't have time to do your own projects unless you can just amass enough money in a year that you can take a year off. But then when you take a year off, you're nervous about, oh, are people going to forget about me? And
Yeah.
it's just a treadmill.
Did you learn a lot working with your husband, or just, I don't know if you work for him or with him or your
Hmm.
partners on certain things,
Hmm.
because he was
Hmm.
so established, let's call it for what it is, and well known
Yeah.
for decades. I mean, I think
Mhm.
he's been doing this for, sounds like, for his entire life.
Since he was, let's see, yeah, he went to St. Mary's College for a year and he studied just art, general art and like modern art. Didn't care
Yeah.
for it. It was like gallery painting, and that's not his thing. He's very detailed, and he's more of he's an illustrator. Let's say what it is. So he went to the Joe Kubert School. They
Yeah.
had just opened up. This was their their first year of operation. And Joe Kubert, who's a very famous comic book artist, he was Dave's direct mentor.
Yes.
And after a year of going there, he looked at Dave's portfolio and he said, "There's nothing more we can teach you here. We don't have, what you need. You need to just have time in the saddle." So he moved to Florida, where his parents lived in Fort Walton Beach,
Right.
and lived with them. And just he took like little jobs here and there, doing like silk screening or creating logos for small businesses or something, and then just spent all of his time in painting, just painting, 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 and then going to different shows and showing all of these famous artists his work to see, get critiques and
Yeah.
advice and guidance. And he did that. How old was he when he did his first big sale? Oh, I wish he was in earshot. He could yell it to me. Um, I think it was 1987, maybe,
Yeah.
that he
He
did
was
his
there from the
first.
original Comic Con. Like, he was with
Yeah.
all that from the
Hmm.
original days of
Hmm.
those
Yeah.
festivals
Yeah.
or events,
New York
conventions.
Comic Con, and yeah, yeah, he's been there since the beginning. And we've seen, just in the time that I partnered up with him, we've seen a lot of changes. I mean, it's been very strange. It's been very strange how it's evolved. But I don't know if we'll ever get back to what it was at its peak. I
Right.
feel very blessed that
Mm-hmm.
we witnessed what we did, because I don't know if that'll ever be again. I
Yeah.
hope it will, but who knows? You know. But yeah, what have I learned from Dave? Let me think. Um, I mean, I've met a lot of people through Dave that I would not have met had I just been out on my own. At least I don't think I would have. So I've met a lot of really interesting people through him, and I maintain those relationships.
Sure.
I'm probably better at that than he is, because he's a little bit, he's a typical artist. He's introverted, and he's very engaging when he's with you in person, and he does love meeting his fans at the shows, but
Sure.
he's he's not. I'm extroverted and he's introverted, and so that's
Right.
just how we are. So I tend to make more connections than he
Mm-hmm.
does, and keep the connections.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome.
the established connections that he has are really solid.
Yeah, and I mean, his artwork is so unique because he also involves different, that he kind of, I'm not saying clashes, but he will take Marvel and maybe Star Wars and combine
DC
them.
and do like a mashup. Yeah.
Yeah, he does these
Yeah.
matchups that are kind of
Hmm.
world famous. I mean, they're
Hmm.
unbelievable. He'll have Darth Vader going against Captain America and things
Yeah.
in that nature, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
even
really
I think he
fun.
blends Marvel and DC sometimes
Hmm.
and all these. And I know other people may do it, but not maybe at the level that he does it
Hmm.
and is unique and is it's just so beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
his artwork is unbelievable. I've never seen artwork to that level.
Yeah. And in
Oh,
person, it's really when I mean I'm looking at it all throughout this room. Yeah, it's really beautiful. He's so much detail, really.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's at another level, and he's like I said, he's been doing this so long. I mean, and he's been a part of the ups and downs. I think with I guess you could say with the comic book industry or the
Hmm.
graphic novel industry when it's
Yeah.
kind of had those ups and downs, and he's been there when it was low, and then when it's
Hmm.
exploded, he's kind of this has been it's more than it's his life. It's not just
Hmm.
something that he took on to just kind of dabble in, which is
Right.
yeah. Dave Dorman. If you guys get a chance, you got to check his stuff out. I
Hmm.
said earlier I did a podcast with
Hmm.
him. It's
Hmm.
amazing his story too. Where he
Hmm.
started, where he ended up is
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah. Heavy Metal was his big start. Yeah.
yeah,
Heavy
yeah,
Metal
yeah.
magazine. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think from the very beginning, right? With heavy metal or
Hmm.
around that time.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. He back when he started out, you could go to different magazines and drop off your portfolio, physical portfolio, and then come back later in the day, pick it up, and if they had an interest, they would buy a piece from you. And he didn't know that heavy metal had a no drop in policy, and so he just
Mhm.
showed up, and he had a train to catch to get back to. He was living at that time in Maryland. No, I'm sorry, he was living outside of DC at the time,
Yeah.
and so he had a train to catch, and so he went and dropped it off, and he said, "Can somebody take a look at this now because I've got to catch a train?" And they said, "Well, we have this no drop in policy, but let me just take a quick look." And so then it got moved up to the next person that came out, and then it got moved up to the what was the guy's name? The main guy. He did like Mad Magazine and
Hmm.
heavy metal. I can't think of his name. Anyway, so he made his first big cover art sale, and then that got him on the radar of a bunch of other art directors, and it just took off from there. And then he started doing stuff for Dark Horse Comics,
Yeah.
and at that time they were the only ones
Yeah.
that had a license for Star Wars and Indiana Jones. So then he did Indiana Jones. Then Lucasfilm approved him as a licensed Lucasfilm artist because they liked his Indiana Jones work. And then when they got the Star Wars, he so it just went from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Dave's your second husband. When
Yes.
did you guys meet?
Let's see. Oh, we met in December of 1999.
And where did
Yeah.
you meet? Where did you meet? I never knew
He
that.
was close friends with a guy named Steve Smith, who I used to work with. A million years ago, I had done some random work for David C. Cook, which is a Christian publishing company where Steve was the either creative or art director. And so that's how we met because Steve was also doing stuff on the side for the entertainment industry. And we realized that we had that in common. So we kind of struck up a friendship. And so then I stayed in touch with him on and off over the years. And then he introduced me to his friend Tom Schild, who is also an amazing creative. And the three of us kind of started doing some projects together. And um, and then Tom had a Christmas party, so I went to the. I was supposed to go to the premiere of Plaster Caster, which was about Cynthia the Plaster Caster. She was the woman who followed rock bands around in the I don't know 60s or so and took
Okay.
plaster impressions of their genitalia, and so
Okay.
there was like a whole court case, and so my cameraman on the Superchargers that I'm really close with, Ken Heineman, he invited me to be his date to this premiere.
Right.
And so then at the last minute, his brother passed away, and so he couldn't go. And he said, "Well, there's tickets for you at the will call window, and I'm not going to go downtown Chicago from the suburbs by myself, go to a movie premiere. No." So I said, "Oh, what the hell? I'll just go to Tom's party." So I
Right.
showed up at Tom's party, and Dave had flown up from Florida, and so that's where we met.
Wow. So
1999.
that's awesome. It was meant to be,
Mhm.
maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. And now we have Jack, my 17-year-old, that gives
Hmm.
me these vertical lines between my furrowed brows that I have to get Botoxed every.
You look young. You look amazing. What are you
Oh,
talking
thank
about?
you. Thank you. Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
well, as you know, in my podcast, or I tell you, I like to learn about things, about people
Yeah.
that they maybe have never talked about before, if they want to
Mhm.
talk about it, or something
Sure.
unique. Because a lot of people do so many podcasts, they're always pitching their product, what they do,
Right.
the same old thing over and over
Mm-hmm.
again. But
Mm-hmm.
you, which you sent me some stuff, kind of blew me
Mm-hmm.
away,
Yeah.
especially it all happening after the age of 40, which
Mm-hmm.
is pretty unique in itself. Not only you having
Mm-hmm.
a child, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, a lot of people may not know you're adopted, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then you ended up meeting both of your parents after
Mm-hmm.
40 and also being involved with three other siblings. Is that right? Am I saying this right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that because you took a, what is it?
That was
Or
actually,
how did
well,
you?
okay, here's what happened. I was getting married to Dave, and I was very nervous about having a child because I had no medical history.
Okay.
And I never did drugs or really drank much growing up because I was so paranoid that I would have an addiction issue that I was unaware of. And so I just never really got into any of that. And in fact, this is so funny. I was probably 32 the first time I attempted to smoke pot at a Depeche Mode concert. And I can't inhale smoke, like I can't smoke cigarettes. I just can't inhale. So me and Bill Clinton, right? So I couldn't inhale, so I never got high, and so that was the end of that. So that was the last of my attempt to get high. But so I Jan Gabriel, who was my TV dad, he was really pushing me to find information about my biological family. I knew my dad's name was Thomas E. Turner, and that's all I knew. I knew his middle initial was E. And so when I did a search online, there was only one Thomas E. Turner with the middle initial E who could possibly have been old enough to be my dad. So Jan and I composed this letter to send to this stranger
Yeah.
to introduce me and just say, I just want my medical history and any information you can give me. And he lived in Lake Zurich, Illinois. So I thought, oh, this is perfect.
Typical.
So we sent the letter in October. And I came back up, and I was living in Florida at the time. I came back up to Illinois in January because Jan and I were working on I don't know, we were working on some video together. We were constantly doing video production projects.
Very cool.
And Jan said to me, "Oh, I haven't heard anything about, have you gotten any feedback?" And I said, "Well, Jan, you're the contact. If you haven't heard it, because we set it up so that whoever contacted me had to go through Jan's. He was my buffer."
Right.
And he said, "Well, I think we should get my lawyer on this." Like Jan had this big personality. He's like, "I think we should get my lawyer on this." And I said, "No, I think we should not do that. That's just too forceful." And he said, "I don't think you want to know the truth." And I said, "No, I do. I want to know the truth, but I just don't want to approach it that way." So he was really frustrated with me. And the next day, I flew back to Florida, and Jan called me as I had just gotten off the plane. I saw at least missed calls, and I called him back. I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "I'm on the other line with your biological mother. Tell me you're still in Illinois." And I said, "What?" "You're kidding me." And he said, "No, she's on the other line. Where are you right now?" And I said, "I just landed in Florida." So um, he had me write down her number. I went home and I called her as soon as I got, settled in. And we had a really nice conversation. And she filled me in on my medical history. And I'd been struggling to get pregnant. And literally the next week I got pregnant. And so that's our only child. And so I always credit Jan Gabriel that, if it wasn't for him and him pushing me and encouraging me,
Yeah.
I probably would never have had a child because psychologically, I think I was blocked.
Were you the first child within their relationship? Is that what
No, I
happened?
was the fourth child within their relationship. So I have my oldest sibling is a sister
Okay.
who is 5 years older than me. And then my brother, Patrick, is like I don't know, 3 years older than me. And then my brother Vince is 18 months older than me.
Hmm.
He's the one I'm the closest to. So, in fact, my oldest sister and I really have nothing to do with,
Okay.
yeah. And my mom, my bio mom, she passed away
Mm,
like 4 years ago.
gotcha.
So yeah, but like, so the day after I turned 40, I flew out to New Mexico where they all lived in the Albuquerque area with my dad from Lake Zurich. He and my best friend Chris and we all flew out there, and I met everybody. And so
Okay.
it was a very confusing and overwhelming time, and not knowing who to trust because everybody was telling me their side of the story, and it was, it was overwhelming, you
Mm.
know, really.
Wow, that's a crazy story. It's unbelievable. My
Yeah.
one of my closest friends actually out of Brooklyn, it's the reverse of you actually.
Hmm.
His parents went and did the I think either 23andMe or
Hmm.
Ancestry, one or the
Hmm.
other. And he came to find out uh his father's father was not his father, which was kind of
Whoa.
shocking because he has a pretty large family, you know.
Hmm.
And so now all of a sudden, even his last name isn't truthfully his last name. To make a long story short, they found out the mother had an affair with they're from Brooklyn, I guess the
Hmm.
pizza guy or something.
Hmm. Hmm.
But actually, he didn't necessarily like his father, which he was very relieved because his father never treated him too well, my buddy's
Hmm.
father. And then he reached out to his other half brothers and I think sisters. And they all look alike and they've all hit it off really well. The
That's
only thing
nice.
is his aunt, so his father's sister, is very upset with
Hmm.
the mother. And she don't even
Hmm.
want to be tested because she's afraid
Hmm.
that maybe well, either way, it doesn't necessarily work out. If she is, she's now her brother's only her half brother, or her
Hmm.
father, who she adored, is not her father any longer, which is pretty shocking. And
Hmm.
it's a really interesting story how all these things kind of come to be when you hear about them. They're like, oh my
Right.
goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
My brother Vince and I that are the closest and the most alike. It's interesting because a few years ago, my son and I were driving up to Lake Zurich to take my dad out for Father's Day for like Father's Day lunch, and as we're driving to the restaurant, my biological dad says to me, your mom messed around on me a lot, so I don't really know if you're even my real daughter. And so I was like, okay.
Right.
So I got DNA kits for my two brothers because I thought if am a match with them, Jill, who I'm no longer in touch with, I couldn't get her to do it, obviously, so I got my two brothers to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
my brother Vince, that's the closest to me, said, I've never really felt like I was dad's son. And I think that the reason that is because my dad never really believed that Vince was his son. And I think that my dad treated him differently because
Yes.
he never really believed that he was his son. So we all three got these tests done, and we are all a perfect match. And I am really their, full blood sibling.
Right.
So we were able to prove that. But it's just so ridiculous. And it's just so sad, so much wasted time with these ridiculous assumptions that he it's just sad. And then the weird thing that happened right before Thanksgiving, I got a call from my sister-in-law and Vince's wife, Denise, and she told me that my oldest sister
Yeah.
had a child that she had adopted out when she was probably in her, I don't know, late 20s or early 30s in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And that girl now lives downstate somewhere. And she called my biological dad to connect. And
Yeah.
so then my brother, Pat, my middle sibling, he reached out to her. So he's been in communication with her. But I've been trying to get Pat to give me her contact information because really, I'm the only one that can help her navigate this because I'm the only one that understands what this is like, what this is about. And
Right.
my sister will have nothing to do with her. Very
Wow.
sad. She
Wow.
refuses
Yeah.
to have any contact. And my sister's son, tragically, hanged himself in prison. So he was a drug, I don't know, addict or dealer or both, and he hanged himself in prison. So she has no other children. This is her only, So it really it breaks my heart that she's so broken that she can't
Yeah.
find her way to at least give this girl some closure. And so I want to
Well,
reach
you
out to
went
this
through it.
girl.
You know what you're going, you know what it is to be on the other end of it too.
I
So
do. I
the whole
do.
different level. She doesn't know that may be part of it. Right.
When you first meet everyone in person,
Yeah.
you think you're going to feel all of this glow and all of this love. And actually, it's very
It's a bunch of strangers.
unsettling because they're a
Yeah.
bunch of
Strangers.
strangers. And you're like,
Yeah.
why don't I feel this immense love for all these people? But they're all a bunch of strangers. But with Vince, because over time as I got to know him, we really are so much alike that I just feel it with him. It just is. So, yeah.
An amazing story. I mean, it's really,
Hmm. Yeah, and all the weird little quirky coincidences that
sure.
you know that are. I saw nature versus nurture play out in a way in person that no one. I mean, I wish there was somebody that could have studied our situation and informed some sort of a study that they're doing on these reunions and on nature versus nurture. My
Yeah.
brother Vince, we have so many weird little quirky things in common. We have an obsession that toilet paper has to hang in a waterfall position. Like that is, and so Vince will be in a bathroom somewhere and it's not in the water, and he'll like snap a picture and text it to me like, "Can you believe these people?"
Yeah.
He's, I'm like, I know they're all crazy. I actually bought the patent. I have like the print of the patent of toilet paper, and it's in the waterfall position. That's how it's supposed to be. Why people don't hang it that way, I don't know. So we have that. And one time I was at his house. Oh, this was I think when my mom was dying. I went out there, and I was at his house, and my sister-in-law said, butter all of this toast. And so I'm standing there buttering the toast, and I'm just meticulous about it. Like every little square inch of the toast has to have a little bit of butter on it because I
Right.
hate dry toast. And my sister-in-law goes, "What the hell is taking you so long?" I said, "Well, I have a very, I have a method to this." She said, "Oh God," she goes, "Y'all are freaks." She goes, "Your brother's exactly the same way." So just like these weird little things that, we have in common.
Did you see the movie about those three brothers that were separated at birth, the triplets?
No,
Oh,
Is
it's
it a
an amazing movie.
documentary?
Well, yeah, it's one of the. I think did it win an Oscar? I don't think so. It's one of the. It's one of the most incredible films I've ever seen. I first saw it in the airport. I'm sorry, in on an airplane,
Oh,
and then I watched it again at home because it is an amazing story. I'll
hmm,
find the name for you. I forgot it. It
yeah,
came
I
out
want to
a few
see
years
that.
ago. So they were separated at birth, and then
Hmm.
one went to somebody saw one of them at the college and said, "Hey," he addressed him like it was his buddy that he knew before. And he's like, "I don't know who you are." He goes, "Wait a minute, there's a dude that's just like you." So he ran to a payphone with him and he called him. So he called the guy's twin brother, not knowing, but he said, this looks just like you and sounds just like you. So they went and met each other and they're twins. And before you know it, as time went on, then they found out there was another one. I don't want to give too much away, but how they were separated and what they were doing with them, kind of an experimental type thing.
Mm.
It's an amazing story on how they all kind of didn't know each other. Then they all came together and then they became
Mm.
famous. I think they were even on Oprah. Talk about Oprah, Donahue, and all the
Mm.
shows.
Hmm.
They opened a restaurant and they were extremely well known. But as time went on, they were still strangers. Does that kind of
Hmm.
make sense? So what,
It does.
as much as they gravitated towards each other, it kind of didn't work out either, if that makes sense. They kind of all
Hmm.
kind of went their own way at the end.
Hmm.
It's a really interesting story.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah,
I've learned
I'll send it
so
to you on
much.
yeah, I'll send it to you on what's it called? Perfect Strangers or something. Maybe I'm
Oh, I feel like I've actually heard of that. Not the TV show, but I've actually heard of that movie, maybe. But this kind of it's tickling something in my brain. It sounds familiar to me.
tell
Yeah.
me about
Hmm.
before I forget your
Hmm.
ADHD. Tell me about that real quick.
ADHD.
Yeah. Give me your
So
yeah, give me some info on that. What you've been through.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so my whole life, um,
Let me find
I've
this.
had ADHD and I was undiagnosed. I never knew that I had it. I just knew that I was, had a hard time focusing in certain situations, especially if it was math, if anything was math related, or if it was just anything I just really wasn't interested in. It was such a struggle for me to learn something that just did not interest me.
Yes.
So I was in my early 40s, and I had a client in Geneva, Illinois, who was an interior designer. She was amazing. And one day she said to me, she kind of interrupted what I was talking about. She said, "You know, you have ADHD, right?" And I said, "Really? You think so?" She said, "Oh my God, yes." And so then I went down that research rabbit hole and got to understand what it was all about. And eventually, got on medication, on a stimulant that really helps me hyper focus, sometimes a little too much, but it's enormously helpful to have medication, at least speaking for myself, with this affliction. But there were so many things about it that I didn't. I joined a bunch of groups on Quora, Quora.com. I love that platform. So I joined a bunch of ADHD groups to learn even more about it. And a lot of the things that I experience, people don't uh, appreciate. So I have hard times with names. I can recognize somebody's face,
Me
but
too.
remembering names. Do you have
Yes.
ADHD?
I would think I have it. I've not been diagnosed with it, but my daughter, I think my youngest one has, and she's like, "Pop,
Mm-hmm.
you got it." She's like,
Mm-hmm.
"I know you." Yeah, I'm horrible. I'll never forget a face usually, but I'll never remember a name usually. It's really, and I have all these other things.
Mm-hmm. It's very frustrating. The other thing is, they call it time blindness. So
Yeah.
time blindness is you get so into something, you get so focused on something,
Yep.
8 hours can go by, and to you it'll feel like a minute or an
Exactly.
hour. It happens all the time. And Dave would say to me, "You're not on your medication today, are you?" Because Dave will have a conversation with me, and if I'm not medicated, he'll say something that'll trigger me to have a daydream. So he'll use a word like, what would be a word? He might say something about a strawberry. He wouldn't, but because he
Right.
hates strawberries, but he might say strawberry, right? And then, like, in my head, he's still talking, but my head goes,
Yeah.
strawberries. When was the last time I had strawberry ice cream? Oh,
Hmm.
remember that time you were in camp and you made that homemade strawberry ice cream? God, that was the best ice cream you've ever had. And like my brain is like off on this daydream, and then it's like he has to reel me back in to get back into what he's saying and paying attention. It's a really maddening uh, way to live. But and like taking medication, like I have to really strategically routine everything. And in my last job, it was so hilarious because my direct report had to do a review on me, and he said, "I haven't worked with you long enough to really, do a proper review. But the only thing I can think of that you really need to fix is you have too many post-it notes everywhere.
Mm.
You need to get rid of all these post-it notes." And I'm like, "You don't understand. This is how I remember to do things. Because for
Right.
me, if I file things away out of sight, out of mind, I'll never remember.
Yeah.
No matter how important it is,
I
I
get it.
won't." Yeah. So I have to have visual cues to help me remember to do things. It's like one of my workarounds.
Yeah.
Um, there are a lot of things about it that are people don't appreciate or understand. If I'm driving to work and you know I'm thinking about something, I might all of a sudden start driving slower because I'm driving, especially out where I'm working now. If I'm driving out in the country, I might see some cows in the field, and then I'll be like thinking about them. And I just and then I'm like perpetually late because I'm always trying to do too much at the last minute and
Mm.
pack everything. Is these what is it that my friend always says? You're always trying to pack 10 pounds of shit into a 5-pound bag. And that is true. That's what I do. Like, very much last minute stuff.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a strength and weakness almost to what we have.
Hmm.
I don't know if I ever
Hmm.
been diagnosed, but I presume I do.
A
When I
lot
was
of creatives do.
Yeah, and I
Hmm.
was like when school, I hated school, but because I
Mm-hmm.
wanted action and I need to go, go, go. And then all of a sudden I felt like I was stuck in a prison, but I was able
Mm-hmm.
to master like looking at something or listening to someone and having no idea what they're talking about, and just going into my own world and just
Mm-hmm.
doing whatever I want to do. And I realized that in the last probably 12, 13 years when I was traveling a lot in an airplane, it's almost like meditation too.
Mm-hmm.
I can almost remove myself from a situation because my mind is so much stronger. That's how I was able to maybe write screenplays,
Mm-hmm.
write book, or write a book, couple
Mm-hmm.
books, and create all these things because I'm not almost here and now. I'm there, if that kind of
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Even when
Oh,
I was making
I easily can go off like that. Yeah.
films, I'm like, this is like I'm living this life, but I fit really well in the make believe life as well, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. But when I was in real
Mm-hmm.
life, I'm thinking about the make believe life.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of make believe life. I was kind of thinking about real life. I was kind of or I can write like multiple screenplays, 4 screenplays, but I'm a horrible student. People are like, how did you write, in a year,
Mm-hmm.
2 pilots, even though they're rough drafts, 2 features, one's a comedy,
Mm-hmm.
one's a psychological thriller, like, and you're making a movie. Like, how do you do this? But then
Mm-hmm.
if I went to school, I just shut down. I don't know if I just refused to
Yeah.
listen to the professor or whatever my issue was.
Well,
Uh,
for me, college was the greatest because then you got to choose what what your classes were, and if there was something you were actually interested in, then I have no problem focusing if I'm interested. But
yeah.
oh, some of those classes, oh God, I'll never forget macroeconomics. I just switched my major because macroeconomics was so awful for me. I could not do it.
Yeah. I can't, even if it's if you want to teach me something, I'm better independently learning on my own as I go along because I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what it is. I just had issues with teachers or professors. They just bog me
Mm-hmm.
down. This is my own belief back
Mm-hmm.
then, is if they were really successful at what they were doing, they'd be doing it, not teaching it.
Mm-hmm.
My mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I also thought they were kind of like a bullshit con type thing. Like they
Mm-hmm.
were outdated. So they're kind of getting off of a book or they've learned
Mm-hmm.
from somebody else. Again, now if you're learning from a director that's making films, which I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have access to that. But if I
Mm-hmm.
had, like I even thought in film school, which I would have probably loved film school because you're around a bunch of people like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I did modeling and stuff, I love that part of it, of being around these
Mm-hmm.
groups and sports and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because later in life, after high school, I was always had to do just so many things. If it wasn't just about making money and traveling and all these different, I can't sit still mentally or physically. It's just,
You have it.
yeah,
I guarantee you have it.
yeah, I would think I have it.
Yeah.
But I could
Yeah.
sit down and talk with someone like you, and I'm very into it, right? But then if I'm not into it, you won't even get the time of day out of me. Not disrespectful, but I'll just be like listening to you, and I won't.
But you're not there. Your
Not
mind
there.
is checked out. Yeah. I know. I get it. I do the same thing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what I found out was, and I only found this out recently, um, this wouldn't be specific to your situation, but for me, um, like 90% of adoptees have ADHD. So now in some of my ADHD forums on Quora, I'll ask, are you adopted? Because I'm just trying to like do my own research on this to see how much, veracity there is to this, because I watched a video in the fall with a gentleman named Paul Sunderland, who has a video called it's either called Adoption and Addiction or Addiction and Adoption, one or the other. And it was an hour-long thing, and it was like everything that I have gone through in my life
Mm-hmm.
suddenly made sense,
Yeah.
because he was like ticking off all the boxes, explaining why I think the way I do, why I react the way I do, why I'm hypervigilant. I mean, if you come up behind me, I will throw my cup up in the air and like jump out of my skin. I'm so, what's the word? If it was my cat, I'd call it skittish. I'm so skittish, I just overreact. I over catastrophize things. I over catastrophize situations because I'm like thinking,
Yeah.
100 steps out what all the bad things that could happen. Um, there's just so many things about the act of adoption that actually impacts your body chemistry.
Wow.
Um, and there's something called an ACE score. It stands for adult or no, adverse childhood events. I have such a hard time with synonyms, and
Yeah.
anyway, adverse childhood event score. So if you take just kind of the simplistic test, it's like 10 questions. And they say if you have 4 or above, like, the likelihood is that you are going to be addicted to something, impoverished, probably homeless,
Right.
probably, having a child out of wedlock at an early age, doing all of the at-risk things, and possibly suicidal. So it like listed all of these like pathways that happen
Yeah.
typically to people with this high ACE score, which adoptees tend to have. I was 5 out of 10, and it's like 4 or above. So I really am, I'm not trying to be self-aggrandizing, but I'm kind of a walking miracle, because
Mm.
most people that have been through a lot of the stuff that I've been through probably wouldn't be presenting to you in the way that I am today.
Wow. In your adopted parents, were you were raised in
Hmm.
an orphanage or adopted? You were adopted by.
I was adopted at 2 weeks, and my dad, I was always very odd, very different personality, very sweet, very gentle, very kind, never raised a hand to me, was so, very low key and very mellow. But there was always something off about him that I couldn't put my finger on it. And I almost went into psych to try to figure him out, because I was just so curious.
Right.
And in 2014, my dad had to get a blood test, because at that time he had diabetes. It had come after he had knee surgery. He ended up with diabetes and AFib. So he gets this blood test back, and the doctor says to my mom, "Are your children adopted?" And my mom goes, "Yeah. How did you know that?" And he said, "Well, your husband has Klinefelter syndrome, which is 2X and 1Y chromosome." So my dad was a female presenting as a male.
Whoa.
And yeah, and so like he wasn't attracted to, males, he was attracted to females. He looked like a male, but he had 2X and 1Y chromosome, and he was sterile. And he just, and he wasn't feminine in any way, but he was different. He was odd. He didn't have self-awareness.
Mm.
He could not read social cues. And so I realized, it was kind of like being raised by somebody who was autistic. So that was very embarrassing to me as a kid, to introduce people to my dad, or to have people be around my dad, because he would just say inappropriate things and not know that he wasn't supposed to. I always felt like I had to preempt situations and shield myself from situations with my dad. And then my mom was very emotionally unstable. So a lot of abuse from my mom.
Mm.
So it was a very tough upbringing.
Oh, well, you made it through incredibly.
Yeah, yeah.
You are a walking miracle.
Not to pat myself on the back, but yeah, I
No.
really am. Hmm.
A lot of people talk about all the things they've been through. They don't sometimes realize what others have really been through, right? I think about all the
Hmm.
time, like when it comes to
Right.
all different types of things.
Hmm.
Oh my
Hmm.
goodness. Tell
Yeah.
people, we'll wrap this up about
Sure.
your, wherever if you want to tell them what you're doing as far as your podcast, or if you want to
Sure.
connect with LinkedIn, let them know
Sure.
how to reach you.
Okay. Yeah. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Um, I suppose I could put the URL in the comments section of the video when you post it,
I'll
but
put that
it's
as well. I'll put it in.
yeah, linkedin.com/in/rightbrainmedia, which is WRITEBRAINMEDIA. That's my company. Um, where else can you reach out to me? Denise at rightbrainmedia.com. My podcast is Cool People I Know. It's on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and YouTube. And where else? I guess that's everything. Yeah.
That's awesome. Before I forget, it's called Three Identical Strangers, the movie. I looked it up.
Oh, okay. I will definitely check that out. I'm eager to see that,
Yeah,
actually.
I
Yeah.
think you're going to love that. That's
Mm-hmm. I will.
all right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being on my podcast. I've been wanting to
Thank
talk
you
to you
for
for
inviting
so
me.
long. You're so interesting. One of the most interesting podcasts I've ever done on anybody.
Oh, thank you.
Oh my goodness, it's incredible story you have. I didn't even realize it was to this level. And thanks for sharing it. I think a lot of people may be afraid to talk about their past, which is understandable. But I just
I'm
like,
kind of getting to the point where it's like, I don't care. I'm just going to put it out there. And if you want to judge me, fine, but I just don't even care anymore.
I think authenticity is I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I think, for me, that's what I love the most about people, the more authentic they are. I mean, I don't need to
Yeah.
know their business. I'm not saying to that
Yeah.
level. But whatever they're willing to share, I love that because it's a whole different relationship you have with someone. Because
Mhm.
it's kind of like a bonding thing where you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't know this about this person.
Yeah.
Besides just only knowing about what you do in marketing or only knowing about,
Yeah. Mhm.
friends.
Mhm.
I guess. All right, my dear, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you again.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
All
you for
right.
your time. I
Yeah, say
appreciate
have a
it.
day for me.
I will.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay. Take care, Rich.
You too.